Yeah, we're back. MMA After Hour. What a fun day it has been. 4 hours strong, but plenty more to discuss. In fact, we got a lot to discuss. 215 is in the books. Amanda Nunes, reigning, defending UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. A debated fight. A somewhat controversial fight. I don't think it was a robbery. Talk about that. Talk about Ray Borg. Talk about the rest of the card. We'll talk about Pittsburgh. Talk about Canelo Triple G. There's a lot to discuss. We are here exclusively on Twitter. Once again, thank you very much to Twitter for the platform, for the support. MMAFighting.twitter.com. Let's bring back Mr. New York Rick. Let's get crazy here. Let's let our hair down.
Oh, hello.
Let's let our hair down. Let's see it.
Okay.
Yes. Come on.
Do you actually want
Yes, I want to see it.
Oh,
After all these years, let's finally see this damn hair.
It's very long.
Let's see it.
Now, this comes with the caveat that...
yes.
You know Kyle Broflovski from South Park?
Yes.
He has that like very curly...
Oh my God.
Like,
did hair just come out?
what do you mean?
I thought a little piece of hair just came out.
Oh, that's gonna happen with long hair. Yeah, I'm sure there's some hair. But I'm gonna give you the bar mitzvah look. You ready?
I don't understand. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. Oh my gosh. Please get the gifts ready. Oh my God. This is incredible. Why don't you wear your hair like that? Oh, you look like Jesus. You look like the second coming of Jesus. By the way, can I just say something? This is a much better look. Wait, no. Stop it. Okay. When you do that, you look like, Shawn Michaels circa 1989.
I'll take Shawn Michaels. I mean, so far we've got what? Johnny Depp, Shawn Michaels, Jesus. I mean, these are all legendary figures.
Why do we have to do the whole thing at the top, the bun? Why can't we just let it down?
We can't.
What's it like taking a shower with that kind of hair? When's the last time you cut the ends?
I haven't cut it since I started growing it.
You're kidding. You haven't trimmed it?
It's been years.
I
haven't touched it. I haven't touched it. It's surprisingly long though. People don't realize how long it is because I keep it bunned up.
And honestly, you ever wake up and you're like, you know what? Screw this hair.
I'm considering, and I'll put this out there. I didn't expect to. I'm considering, upon the birth of my baby daughter,
I think there
may be a symbolic shaving of the
whole thing.
The head.
You know what? I like that. It's time to grow up.
Excuse me.
What will she say when she sees this? How far away are we?
That dad was a trendsetter.
No, quite the opposite. How far away are we?
We are 2.5 months.
More importantly, how much time are you taking off?
Say time off?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
How does that go?
Oh my God, yes. Esther got a screen grab of it. Let's see it.
Esther got a screen grab. Esther's supposed to be here taking a photo. Take the real deal.
Well, I mean, wow, that was a big deal. Wow, Look at that. And also your hands, did she do that on purpose? Your hands are actually together like you're praying. You look like... I did that. Oh, you did?
You said Jesus, and I gave you the look.
This might be the greatest moment in the history of the show.
Listen, I live to serve the people.
Thank the heavens. Thank Jesus. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank Esther Lynn.
Thank you for that.
For being quick on the trigger.
Guillermo says that you look like Elias Theodoro. I can see that.
Look.
Not as good looking.
I'll take any of these. I'll take any of these. You tell me Johnny Depp. You tell me Elias. Elias is a very handsome man.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
Look, focus. Right. Stay with me here. That was fun. Esther, you go about sharing that. But let's get to the most important thing. Your question of the week.
Yes.
And now, last week, I didn't want to start with your question of the week, but you forced it in there like a real, self-server. But here, I think it is appropriate to start with this question. This was one of the questions that many people asked.
Yes.
Ariel Helwani says, the question of the week, who won the UFC 215 main event?
Yes. Can I see the results?
You'd have to look. It doesn't have it here.
What kind of operation is this?
Look, it doesn't... This is not a perfect system, Ariel.
Well, let me see what the people think first.
You have the results.
Well, I wasn't ready for this. You told me you'd have the tweet.
I do have the tweet.
Okay, well, that's not really the tweet. The tweet is the poll. The poll results are, here it is. All right. Wow. How about that?
Tell me.
Essentially 8,000 votes, 7,900.
Yep. 1 day left on it.
36% for Amanda Nunes. 64% for Valentina Shevchenko. Now, I believe on my phone, you can actually see how many people voted for each, but That's the gist. I'm a little surprised. Are you surprised?
No.
You're not?
You know what? Maybe I am. I thought it'd be more split. But I think the instinct in that situation is to go with the loser of the fight.
I was surprised at the reaction to the decision.
I'm surprised.
Now, in the arena, I wasn't surprised. That was a hot crowd. It was late. You know, they're getting antsy. They want to see a big finish, a crescendo. And that fight wasn't that.
Not. No.
Like I said to Raquel Pennington, that fight reminded me of Woodley Wonderboy 2 in that they both fought each other. They're two very high-level fighters. They know how dangerous each of them are, and they kind of neutralize each other, and it doesn't lead to the best kind of fight. And so the crowd, I felt, was going to boo either decision. I was surprised at the Twitter reaction. Most of it seemed to be that Valentina was robbed. I don't agree with that. I think it was a very close fight. I thought it was 2-2 going into the fifth. I thought Amanda won the first, third, fifth. I thought that Valentina won the second and fourth. I think the takedown may have sealed it for Amanda. I think those fights were really hard fights to score, hard rounds to score, I should say. Look, I don't think it's going on either of their highlight reels. I don't think it was an incredibly entertaining fight. I thought it was a high-level fight between two very, very, very good fighters. And unfortunately, it didn't lead to, you know, the kind of crescendo that I think that crowd wanted, but it wasn't a robbery. And I think in the end, Amanda did enough to win the fight. And one more time, can we please put to bed this idea that to be the champ or to become the champ, you must beat the champion. No judge scores a fight based on who's the champion and who's not. No judge looks at around and says, all right, this is what happened, but this person was the champion, and they did a little more, and this person didn't do enough to actually beat the champion. No, a judge just scores rounds based on what he sees, or at least that's what he or she should do, and all you have to do is win 3 rounds. That's it. You don't have to beat the champion. You don't have to do more than in a 5-round non-title main event. You just have to win 3 rounds. That's it.
A few things on this. One, quite often when people use the word robbery, it doesn't apply. I'd say 90% of cases in MMA, people are outraged calling for robberies, and it really doesn't apply outside of, you know, a few very specific circumstances. Secondly, the thing about the champions getting the benefit, I could see an argument, and this is the specific case where, let's say it's supposed to be a 10-10 round. We very rarely actually see a 10-10 round. I could conceive of a circumstance where a judge who's looking at a 10-10 round sides with the champion.
Danny Segura scored the fourth 10-10.
Yeah. And you know what? I'd like to see it more. I really would. I don't think in this case, it was used.
If it's used more, I think fighters will be a little more aggressive. I don't know how much it would change. I didn't think any of those rounds were 10-10s.
Yeah. Can you give me your scoring again?
First, third, fifth, Amanda. Second, fourth, Valentina. But they were hard rounds to score. But that's what I was thinking that night.
Yeah. And I think that most people have first and fifth for Nunes.
Yeah. Although the judges were all over the map. Second
and fourth for Shevchenko. I think 3 is the one that most people are kind of back and forth on. But either way, no robbery. I don't think either fighter really put their stamp on that fight to the point where you could be upset that a round was scored the other way. They were all close rounds. I am surprised by 30 whatever % though, because I thought it would be more split.
I honestly think that some of that is a trickle-down effect from what happened in July. I think Amanda Nunes isn't in the best graces of the fans. I think her saying afterwards that she doesn't care that she was booed, that she wanted to go 5 rounds to prove to herself this one was for herself, maybe wasn't the best PR answer. I think some fans are mad at her. And I think that some of that is kind of seeping in here. I think it's best for the UFC to move on from this feud. I don't think that Valentina is going to get a third crack anytime soon, especially because Amanda beat her twice. I know one of them was a non-title fight, but I just think that they want to move on. And I have to say, Valentina, in my opinion, right now, I mean, I think you can make a strong case that she's the second best bantamweight in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if she goes down to 125, she is the front runner to be the champion. Now, I don't know what Joanna is planning on doing, but I'm not incredibly impressed with the talent at 125 on The Ultimate Fighter. There's some other fighters out there, like Andrea Lee, like Maya in Invicta. There are some names out there who aren't a part of the show, and we've seen in the past that those who go on the show don't end up being the champions or the face of the division. We saw that at 115. We've seen that at 135 as well. I think if Valentina goes down to 125, she could be a force there.
I agree with that.
And just goes to show how good she is. I think she's still a force at 135, but she weighed in at 133. She doesn't have to. I'm just saying there's a real opportunity. If she's not going to get another crack at Amanda, there's a real opportunity to become a champion and do some damage there at 125.
I agree with you. No disagreement there.
And by the way, do you agree with my assessment that Pennington is next?
Just based on you look at the rankings, it's almost like who else could it be?
I like this idea of she should be next today, but if Nunes is taking some time off, I like Pennington's idea of Pena next and then the winner of that. And I know Pena's coming off a loss, but she was patient. She's been through a lot. I think either way, the UFC wins in that regard.
So our next question is specifically regarding that from Jay Walker. What's next for Nunes? Hard to market another fight with Shevchenko. Does Ngannou get the fight as the only one to beat Nunes?
I mean, Ngannou's been out for quite some time, and she has been campaigning. She's a name as well that I'd like to see return. She's coming off the loss at UFC 200, right? I mean, she hasn't fought in a while. So I really think I think the problem is that people just have forgotten about Pennington because her last fight was almost a year ago. She retired Miesha Tate, and she's won 4 in a row. And I think that, she has a great story. She's marketable, and she's really put it all together. So I'd like to see her get that opportunity. I just don't know if the timing is going to work out. Although she's coming off 3 pretty extensive surgeries. I didn't know about the mouth one. So I don't know. I kind of feel like, also, we don't know about Kat Zingano at this point as well. And Pena is kind of, there's a lot with the top people there. Like, Holly Holmes at 145. Pena is kind of mysterious right now. Again, I don't know why Ronda's still being ranked, but okay, she's 4. Pennington, McMahon just lost. Caitlin Vieira is in that mix, but no one really knows her at all. Pena has the Ultimate Fighter behind her. I think Pena versus Pennington makes the most sense if Pennington doesn't just wait for a title shot and they can convince Nunes to come back sooner rather than later. If that surgery gets done soon, we'll see what happens. But that's kind of what I'm thinking as far as the top of the division is concerned. Yep.
Still a lot to be seen.
Yeah.
What should the UFC do about main events falling out at the last minute? From Keegan Webster, sorry. Replacements should be on the same card as the co-main main.
I disagree with that.
Okay.
I actually disagree with that. I don't think it's fair at this stage to expect, and I know that you're upset. I get it. I was upset. I didn't have to pay tickets. I didn't have to pay all that money. But I get it. But I think it's unfair to expect Demetrious Johnson, who's this far along in his career, who's on the cusp of making history, to just say, all right, I'll fight someone else, someone who he's fought already, someone who he hasn't fought. No, I don't think that's fair. There's too much. I thought that, Amanda Nunes and Nina Ansaroff put it very well in the build-up to this fight. There is too big of a discrepancy between being champion and not being champion, especially if you're not the biggest name. If you lose that belt, you fall all the way down. And that is part of the issue with a guy like Stipe Miocic. Luke Rockhold had that issue. Chris Weidman had that issue. You become champion, you get a great deal. But part of that deal states that if you are no longer champion, your purse goes all the way down. That's a very hard thing to deal with. That's a lot of pressure. And so I understand when someone like Amanda Nunes isn't feeling 100%, says, you know what? I'll live to fight another day and I'll wait 2 months to fight again. And I certainly understand when someone like Demetrious Johnson says, no, I prepared for this guy. I'm going to fight this guy. Now, what's the remedy to this issue, which has become somewhat of an issue over the past few months, but it's not something that's happened all the time. What's a remedy? Remedy is better cards. Back in the day, we talk these days about this is the best card in UFC history. Back in the day, the top 9 fights, top 10 fights were all spectacular with the biggest names. The expectations, our expectations as to what makes a great card has significantly lowered. And kudos to Demetrious Johnson for telling it like it is last week and saying that there are too many cards. And just look at this stretch that we're embarking on now. 16 out of the next 18 weeks, there are UFC cards. That's a lot. And the UFC just doesn't have the roster to sustain that. They don't have the depth of talent. They don't have the stars. They don't have the names. They're creating a title to main event their next pay-per-view. I think that there's a chance, and this is no knock on 215. This is no knock on Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko. I think that there's a chance that 215 is one of their lowest pay-per-views ever, only because it's in the same billing cycle as Mayweather-McGregor. If you bought Mayweather-McGregor, you're the kind of person who is also interested in 215. Are you buying both? Are you spending $150 in the same billing cycle for pay-per-view? And by the way, if you're the kind of fight fan that buys everything, you're also probably buying Canelo Triple G. Are you paying $200+ in a month for pay-per-views? So it's a very strong possibility that people skip that one. And especially with, the news that the DJ fight was off and you wouldn't be seeing history anymore. There's too many cards. There's not enough fighters to, sustain those cards. And so the answer to this question is, how do you remedy this? You just have to have better cards. You just have to have better cards. So unfortunately, if you lose a main event, thank God they had another title fight on this card. What would they have done if there was only one title fight? What would they have done if Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko fought on July 8th? They would not have been fighting on September 9th, right? Nunes or Shevchenko would not. No.
But this card could have looked different. I mean, you can't say
no, they moved that fight. They moved that fight to September 9th after it fell off because you'll remember DJ was involved in that contract issue. His hand was busted. It became a silver lining for them. They didn't have a main event that night, and they moved that. So what happens if, all right, they end up getting DJ fight falls through, RDA versus Magny is your main event, right?
In a vacuum, yes. I think there's things they could do to change that.
Who's available? Look at their next pay-per-view.
Or maybe it's not on pay-per-view. Maybe it becomes not a pay-per-view.
Yeah, but anyway.
I get what you're saying.
They need deeper cards. They need better cards. They need, stronger lineups. And that's the only way to remedy this, so that if you lose one fight, you still have tons of other great fights.
If, from Cody Sperling, if Johnson versus Borg gets rescheduled for 216, how many more pay-per-view buys do you see it getting? Essentially, how much does DJ and Borg add to 216?
In a weird way, I feel like this has elevated DJ a little bit. I feel like he's becoming a bigger star. I mean, just him sitting there on Saturday and Cejudo winning and like talking to him. I don't know. It just felt like the controversy elevates him a little bit. I don't know what that translates into. I'll say this. There isn't a right answer here, right? I mean, there clearly isn't a right answer as far as who's next for DJ outside of Borg. But I'm thinking long and hard, if I'm the UFC, about giving him that shot. And that's no knock on Borg. That is no knock on Borg. But we're just looking at the history. I mean, I read it before to DJ. More often than not, he doesn't show up. And at the last minute. So he was sick. He had trouble cutting weight. Whatever the story is, he pulled out 48 hours before, right? He was unfit to fight. He was not medically cleared. You're going to turn around a month later? Part of the reason why, I was saying go with Borg over TJ Dillashaw was because TJ has never made weight at 125, and there's history at stake here. You're promoting that. You can't risk him missing weight. The only thing worse than what happened on Thursday was Borg missing weight and this no longer being a title fight. Now, it would have been somewhat coincidental because a lot of people think that Anderson Silva should actually have 11 title defenses because Luter missed weight at 67, and that should be no knock on Anderson. For example, if Anderson would have missed weight, Luter could have still fought for the belt. So why can't Anderson defend the title against a guy? You know what I mean? Why can't it be both ways?
Well, I can answer that.
Please.
Because it's not a 5-round fight anymore.
It should be, though. Like if DC Max Holloway situation, if DC missed weight 210, right? He would have been stripped. But Rumble could have still become champion.
Right, because it was still a 5-round main event fight.
Yeah, so was this. It was the main event.
Was it? Yeah,
it was the main event. So anyway, so that would have been somewhat, ironic, I guess the word is. The point is,
wait.
I'm thinking long and yes.
back in those days, main events were all 5 rounds.
No, that's not my point. My point is why, if Anderson would have missed weight, why would Luder have had the chance to become champion, but Anderson can use that as a title defense? He's still the champion.
I get
fighting
what you're
the same
saying,
guy.
but in that circumstance, it becomes a 3-round fight.
I know.
Therefore,
you get my point.
I do.
Anyway,
I don't think
if you're the UFC,
again.
Are you going back to Borg?
No, I'm not.
But then what do?
You wait for Joey B to heal up. You give it to
Joey
Cejudo.
B's out for a while. He had an ACL injury.
You do whatever it is, but it's not.
The problem is Pettis. Pettis should be the guy.
You do Pettis.
But Pettis doesn't want it. Pettis wants Cejudo, and I love that fight.
Wait for the winner of that.
It's just it's really tricky right now. You to go back to that well.
It's very difficult for you to have trust in Ray Borg at this point. No matter what the circumstance is, whether it was weight cutting issues, not weight cutting issues, there's been too many fights where he hasn't made it to fight time to make that type of investment. And let me just say this. It's a business.
Ray Borg's team reached out to me, Perfecting Athletes, and they provided a statement. And I appreciate that. You don't see that from a lot of nutritionists. They wanted to have a statement, and we put it up. And then Borg's statement afterwards, saying that he parted ways with them. Why did you part ways with them if you were sick?
Well, maybe he didn't want them making a statement on his behalf first.
Fair. But is that really, I mean, that's one of the top nutritionist teams in the sport.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, last fight was perfect for him. March of 2017.
Made weight,
won. That's the batting 1,000.
Yeah.
Prior to that, Louis Smolka, UFC 207, missed weight, 129.5. Then there was...
Which is an insane number.
What do you mean?
That's way too much. Like, there's missing weight, and then there's just completely blowing it.
Right.
And that's too much.
And so, and that wasn't that long ago. That was in December.
Yeah.
Then prior to, a year ago, do you remember in Cleveland, UFC 203, just a couple of days before? So you had the DJ fight that was canceled. Formiga was batting 1,000. Smolka, he misses the weight. Ian McCall 203, illness.
Yep.
UFC 201, pulled out, injury, 10 days out. Scoggins. Fight was in 2016. Lost that one. I think he made weight for that one. I don't know. I read it before. Let me just get it.
I think he may have missed on the first attempt or something with that. Then there was. I remember something with that one.
My man Michael Chiappetta wrote it down very nicely. Just give me a second here. I want to get this right.
But I mean, overall, I think it's very difficult, to put your trust in that. Now, that's not to say the summation of this is that's not to say that Ray Borg is a liar. That's not to say that Ray Borg isn't sick. I think people are missing the point here. Even if that is the case, there's a history of just not making it to the fight. Whether it's related to an illness, whether it's related to missing weight, there's a track record that's being developed. And that does not mean that Ray Borg wasn't sick and shouldn't have fought. That can be true.
I believe his team.
That can be completely true.
They've told me, throwing up, it sounded like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he can't make the weight. I'm just saying there seems to be a pattern. August of 2015, missed weight. February of 2016, makes weight, loses. July of 2016, pulls out 10 days before the fight against Serrano. September of 2016, pulls out 3 days before the fight against McCall. December of 2016, wins but misses weight, as we said. And then the March one, wins, decision, no issues at all. That's a victory. And then, of course, what happened a couple days ago. So this is a product of there not being enough contenders at 125. I would bang down Sergio Pettis' door, but if he doesn't want it, he doesn't want it. You can't force the guy. I was excited to see the fight. I was telling Borg's coach, Brandon Gibson, at the open workouts, I was like, you know what? There are times when guys say like, oh, I'm going to shock the world. I'm going to beat this guy. I'm going to make history. And you don't really believe it. Like, he speaks with conviction. You know what I mean? He speaks with confidence. He seemed to really think that he had the answer to Demetrious Johnson. He could figure him out. And so I was excited for it. And then this happens. And so all I'm saying is if I'm the UFC, I'm thinking long and hard about rebooking it because there is a pattern there. It's not a first. If it's a first, you say, look, tough crap, got sick, let's move on. But how do you ignore all of this?
Yeah. I mean, it's all circumstance, though. there may be no alternative that may be working out timing wise. So I could see it being rebooked just as easily as I could see it being overlooked and bypassed. The same way Amanda Nunes was not going to headline a pay-per-view and ends up headlining a pay-per-view. There's always circumstances that can make these things happen. And I wouldn't be surprised in either case, but I think there's definitely caution.
The plan is to rebook. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And I think part of that reason is because there's not a lot of other options. I'll just say this on DJ. He has turned in my opinion, into one of the more entertaining interviews because he just doesn't give an F anymore, and he's completely free and unfiltered. And I have a feeling, that we will appreciate this man as a mixed martial artist, not as an interview guest, not anything like that. Just as a fighter.
As a Twitch streamer.
A lot more when he's gone than when he's around right now. I feel like he's starting to get appreciated more, but I feel like we'll look back on his run with fondness and respect and admiration a lot more than we show him right now. At least the general public will. That's my prediction.
What about Henry Cejudo? This is from Jesse Drebbit. Does the Henry Cejudo we saw on Saturday night pose the biggest threat to DJ? And then they say, or is Cejudo Pettis the next step?
Yeah, 100%. I was told from Cejudo's team that Pettis was actually up against the cage, and as they put it, mean mugging Henry Cejudo after the victory. I didn't even know that Sergio Pettis was in Edmonton. How they
get the camera?
How they missed that? I have no idea. Now, it was cool to see the back and forth with DJ, and I did think that elevated DJ, but I think it's a little too soon for Henry Cejudo to be in that discussion. I mean, that first fight, the problem with the first fight at 197, it was too soon in Cejudo's career. He was only 10-0. He had only been doing this for 3 years, didn't have an amateur career. I remember saying this at the time. I wish he was 15-0, 16-0. Had a little more fights, especially cutting to 125, especially being in the UFC under his belt. Followed that up with the fight against Joseph Benavidez, which I thought was super close, and he had a strong case, and unfortunately went 3 rounds. Maybe it goes a little different if it goes 5, but that was a very entertaining fight. So he only has 1 win. Now that's a great win, but it's his first finish in the UFC. It's his first finish in 4 years. Yeah, first finish in 4 years, a little over 4 years. It's been a while for him. And so I want to see a couple more. I think the Pettis fight makes all the sense of the world. They were supposed to fight in May. He pulled out due to a hand injury. That's the fight I want to see.
Lest we forget also, it's not like Henry Cejudo is Mr. Reliable when it comes to
no, of course,
as well.
Of course, yeah.
So you're dealing with a similar gamble here. I do think that was a statement win, though, by Henry Cejudo. It's hard to criticize anything that happened there. He looked absolutely flawless against a contender, against a former title challenger in Wilson Hayes.
I like how DJ says that he put out the blueprint to beat Wilson Hayes.
Yeah, I don't think there was necessarily like a best-selling blueprint. I don't think anybody was searching for that one. Okay. There's 2 questions here that are very similar. We're going to read them both. Random Hero says, considering how long the refs took to stop the fight in the Tucker fight, should we see corners throw in the towel more often?
Yes.
We see from Handsome Rob, after what we saw with Gilbert Melendez, should corners be more proactive in throwing in the towel? Essentially, question being, do corners have a responsibility? Should they be taking more on themselves in terms of stopping fights? We saw, and this was a question regarding Gilbert Melendez versus Jeremy Stevens, and with Rick Glenn and
Gavin Tucker.
Now,
that referee, by the way, in the Gavin Tucker fight, his name is Kyle Cardinal, and he's a local referee. He did a horrendous job. I was happy to read Gavin Tucker put out a statement absolving the referee and saying, like, don't blame him. You know, that was on me. I mean, it was a very good statement. He said, or he wrote, I should say, on Facebook that Kyle actually visited him in the hospital. And, you know, kudos to him for doing that. What I had heard, and I've yet to officially confirm this with the commission, but that I heard that Kyle was essentially told, your night is done after this. Not necessarily punished, but he was clear, his schedule was cleared after that. In a city in which Tim Hague recently died as a result of the injuries that he sustained in a boxing match, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, you would think that the radars would be, you know, a little stronger and that they would be a little more sensitive to this kind of damage. Now, I had heard all week long that that was the case, that they were on their P's and Q's, that they realized that the spotlight was on them. Well, apparently Kyle Cardinal didn't get the memo, because what he did to Gavin Tucker, or maybe I should say what he didn't do, was reckless, was egregious. Gavin Tucker should not have taken that much punishment. Gavin Tucker is a young fighter, an undefeated fighter up until that point, who's got his whole career ahead of him. Why in the world did you not stop that earlier? And then, I'm sorry, but his corners should be criticized as well. Why aren't they looking at their guy who they have to go back to the gym to, who they have to go back and rebuild, say, look, let's live to fight another day. We lost the first 2 rounds rather convincingly. Let us move on. Let us just move on. Let us just end this fight. And from my conversations, I think that Gilbert Melendez's team had those thoughts afterwards as well. Like, it's not worth it. Now, we've seen some Hail Mary punches. We've seen some crazy turn of events. But at some point, you have to think about the future. You have to think about sustaining long-term damage, living to fight another day. And yes, the referee's job, first and foremost, they are there in a neutral capacity to try to protect both fighters. I understand. This is part of the problem with the win and show money breakdown. A fighter will go back and be like, you robbed me. I had $15,000 more that I could win. Why did you stop that fight? I had him. Rope-a-dope. I was going to do it. I was going to shock the world. This is a very awkward position to be in if you're a cornerman. If everything is already, promised, you don't have to think about that. But unfortunately, they do. That's a problem with the way the sport is structured, or at least the way the UFC pay structure is structured. And so the referee, first and foremost, needs to understand that responsibility that he has to both fighters. And he needs to recognize when a fighter is no longer intelligently defending himself and taking unnecessary damage. That referee that night did not do a good job. That's the kind of job that, in my opinion, puts you on the sidelines. You got to build yourself back up and prove that you understand what it means to officiate a combat sports fight. So yeah, the referee needs to answer for his actions. The corners need to explain why they did that. I understand probably money was involved and they don't want to rob their guy, and it's a tough position, but how you can watch a friend, a teammate, a sparring partner, a student go through that and not think, you know what, maybe we should just call this off, is beyond me. Maybe that's why I can't do that. Maybe that's why, to answer David Branch's question, I can't do what they do in the cage. I can't fight for a living. And I certainly can't watch a friend, a teammate, a training partner, a sparring partner, a student go through that kind of unnecessary damage. He was not coming back. He wasn't.
Yeah, I think much more so in the Tucker-Glenn fight than with Gilbert Melendez. But in either case, the path to victory seemed very limited, and we could have seen something from the corners for sure. I understand, you touched on it exactly. They have to then answer to that fighter later and say, hey, I took that opportunity away from you because the tide wasn't changing, where the fighter can come back and say, I had it in me, I was going to do this or that. It's a difficult position to be in, but that's why I think the referee has to be that first line of defense, where the corner has to step in if they're not doing their job.
Wait, can I just... I was trying to find it. Come on. Oh, okay. So... Gavin Tucker posts this on damn it, I can't make this bigger. I have very bad eyesight. So he posts this on Facebook. 4 broken bones in my face, the first of which started on the jaw in round 1, and the fight went down from there for me. 2 fractured orbital bones and another vertical fracture in the jaw, according to the X-ray scan, CT scan. And then he says the heartbreak of losing hurts much more. That is unnecessary. You know what I mean? That's a young fighter. Live to fight another day. You weren't the better man that day. And who knows what kind of damage Gilbert Melendez sustained. The picture is gruesome. Hopefully no structural damage. Please, corners, do your fighters a favor. And then, of course, it goes without saying for the referees. That to me is the no-brainer. We need to see more corners step in. They don't have as many opportunities as they do in boxing, right? They don't have 12 opportunities or 11 opportunities or 9 opportunities, or if it's a 4-round, they don't have as many in a 3-round fight. it's only twice that they get to talk to them, right? They only get to talk to them between the first and second and third to actually speak to the fighter and be like, hey, should we stop this? You know, like, because it's very rare to see that, because a fighter, I guarantee you, is going to say, why did you stop it in the midst of the fight, right? Why did you stop? Why did, it's very rare to have that. You'll never see it. You see it very, very rarely. It's super rare. You remember that Nate Diaz fight against Josh Thompson? I think it was Nick Diaz throwing in the towel, although it was kind of a moot point. Anyway, I would love to see that more, or at least those conversations happen more.
Gilbert Melendez, 1-5 in the UFC, 1-4 in his last 5. What are your thoughts on his future? This was his first fight at featherweight. I think, it's a little too early to say it's over. I think probably he could make another run at, I think he at least could have another fight at featherweight to see where he stands. Jeremy Stephens probably not getting the credit he deserves, and a really, really good performance from him.
One of his best.
But what do we think about Gilbert?
One of Jeremy Stephens' best, and I love that story that he postponed his wedding to take this fight. That's how much it meant to him, and he certainly showed up. Kudos to Jeremy Stephens, who it always seems like has these great performances and then kind of takes a step back. Hopefully this ignites a bit of a run. I'm not ready to write off Gilbert Melendez. I thought he looked fantastic at 145. I thought he looked to be in great shape. The fight just didn't go his way, but I want to see one more at 145 before, I start campaigning for him to retire. But yeah, it's amazing to me that he hasn't won since UFC 166. That was a long time ago. Cain Velasquez was the champion then.
From PD and Gia, why have a no open fingers rule if it isn't enforced? Nunes was warned 4 more times and nothing. Does this send a bad message? I guess if we're not going to enforce the rules, why do we have them? And we see this a lot. But in particular, I think, there was a thought that this specific foul was going to be addressed more
I have to go
clearly
back,
and regularly.
And maybe someone can answer this for me on Twitter. I don't recall, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't remember if the Edmonton Commission adopted the new rules or was still on the old rules. I feel like it's the new rules, but I don't know 100%. But yeah, you're right. This is said every single time that we watch MMA. If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Yeah. Unfortunate that that's the circumstance.
It's very rare that on the first egregious offense that you are actually penalized for it. Now, 3-4 is just, on a whole other level, but you're more inclined to be warned repeatedly than be punished repeatedly. And so the fact that we don't see this more, don't see more cage grabbing, don't see more eye pokes, don't see more blows below the belt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is actually more surprising than the times that we do.
Here's our opportunity to talk about Canada.
Yes.
Does Canada have the best crowds in MMA, in your opinion?
Of course.
206 and 215 were fairly weak on paper, and the crowd still showed out. I would say 215 wasn't very weak on paper. I'd say it was pretty solid.
It was solid, but it wasn't, it wasn't what we saw in Anaheim or the New York.
It wasn't 206 though.
206
suffered.
I mean, that crowd in Toronto was incredible. They were hot as hell. They filled up the place. They were loud. They came there early. Same could be said about the Edmonton crowd. Don't get it twisted. I mean, yes, they were booing, and again, I have my hypothesis as to why, end of the night, they're maybe getting a little anxious. It wasn't the most exciting fight. Okay, but that was a great crowd all week. They were into it. They rolled out the red carpet. Yeah. Very rarely does Canada not show up. Actually, UFC 186 was one of the few times, and I think that the market in Montreal was just killed, and I'm hoping that the return of GSP signals a reigniting of the entire country, that in Vancouver they get a little more excited, because there was a time, I mean, just look at the lack of regional shows. People were talking to me about MFC. MFC is gone. There was the Score Fighting Series. TKO is starting to get back, but they certainly aren't what they once were. There were all kinds of shows all over Canada that were doing great things, and now it's just it's very quiet. And I know that this is kind of a trend in MMA these days, but Canada was, in my opinion, like the crown jewel of fighting countries. And I'm hoping that GSP returns and is able to get people excited again, and there'll be a trickle-down effect. So yeah, I think that they are some of the best crowds as a country. And I know we're talking about a lot there. I'm curious to see what the Winnipeg crowd now, how do they look the second time around? How do they sound the second time around if the UFC comes back to Edmonton? Every employee of the UFC who I spoke to about the experience of working with the Rogers Place Arena, the Edmonton officials, they told me that they were just blown away by how accommodating everyone was, how much of a pleasure it was. That's part of the issue with Calgary, by the way. They just have issues securing a date, working with the arena there, the Saddle Dome, older arena. But, you know, the blame isn't solely on the UFC. Edmonton, with their new arena, they want to be considered, you know, a prime venue with prime talent. I saw that Jay-Z was coming in the next couple months. They rolled out the red carpet. And what has happened there, I mean, it's just like a textbook thing. Open the new arena in an area that was not very good. And now you see that if you're there, there's like tons of things going on around it. Edmonton's a great city. If you are a hockey fan, if you are just a sports fan, I urge you to go check out that arena. It's fantastic. And then while you're there, go to the West Edmonton Mall. That is the greatest mall that I've ever been to. This mall used to be the biggest mall, but I learned in 2004 they lost that title to a mall overseas, I think maybe in Dubai. And I think I've been to that mall as well. But this one, to me, they had like a beach in there with a wave. I don't know if it was wave, like big waves. I don't know what you call them. You could go surfing. They had a skating rink, which was currently under construction, but it's there. They have an amusement park for kids. Tons of cool. I mean, it was just amazing, that place. I love the mall. They have everything. Yes. It was amazing. I could have spent the whole day there, did some shopping. I felt like I was Christmas shopping. I never do this, but I got something for my 2 sons, my daughter. I got something for my wife even.
Anything for me?
Nothing for you. I even bought some things for myself, and I rarely do that. I just said, you know what? It's Saturday afternoon in Edmonton. Let me go balls out. Let me just have a great time. Danny Segura is telling me that it's called an artificial ocean. There you go. That's what they have at the West Edmonton Mall. So I had a great time. Now I will say the one drawback is it is a long journey, my friends. I had to go from New York. Listen to this. I had to go from New York to Toronto to Edmonton to get there. But the New York to Toronto flight was delayed. So I changed my flight because then I had to take a later flight to get to Edmonton. And then I almost missed the connection and I was running. This is Wednesday night. I thought for sure, but my connection flight was 10 minutes late. So that saved me while I'm running in the Toronto airport to catch the connection flight, because then I'm going to have to sleep in Toronto, miss the workouts the next day. I see a high school friend who I've not seen in 15 years just randomly in the Toronto airport. And then on the way back, I had to go through Denver. By the time you're home, you're very tired. See the kids, get ready for the show. So if I had to say one negative thing about going to Edmonton, it's a very long flight. It's a very long journey. But otherwise, I enjoyed it immensely.
Sounds like it's worth that journey, though, based on your raving.
I mean, it is worth
review.
It. But like, am I, hoping to go there again next month? Maybe not. Went to this great ramen place. They put Gouda cheese on it. It's fantastic. I could use some of that right about now. I'll tell you.
I mean,
okay, that
could have brought me back something.
Next time, I promise.
Ariel, any word? This is from Kazan. Any word on Rory Mac's next fight? And is it for the belt? I think we know it's not for the belt, but any word on?
What do you mean it's not for
Rory?
The belt? Of course it's for the belt.
Wait, what?
Douglas Lima.
Did I miss this?
I mean, it's happening. It's just a matter of when.
That's done. That's done deal.
That's not like booked, but that is the plan. Okay. That is the plan. But you just said, of course, not for the belt. Why wouldn't it be for the belt? Who else is there?
Maybe I'm misremembering. Wasn't there something about Rory not getting the title fight? Remember, he said something on Twitter to somebody to the effect of...
No, he was talking with Michael Chandler. He was getting very anxious that he wasn't getting booked. And there is something to be said for that. There just aren't fights. They were very top-heavy early on in the year, and then they'll end the year with a lot of fights. But there's just this lull in the Bellator calendar.
We're expecting Rory to fight for the belt.
Yes, the question is where. There have been some talks of Canada, which I think would be a lot of fun. And I think that would be a big deal, perhaps in Toronto or British Columbia or even in Montreal. I think that would be a huge deal. But yes, I'm expecting him to fight for the belt next towards the end of the year. By the way, one thing to keep an eye out, Bellator 200 is coming up, and I think that they're going to make a big deal about that. And by the way, I should tell people that I didn't say this last week. Where is this guy? The Fedor bobblehead if you attend the event in San Jose on September 23rd, there's like the first 5,000 or so fans. I could probably pull it up, but that's that. You remember I was looking for a plug as to where people can get this.
Now we know.
Yeah. Let me just give away the plug here. It's the first 5,000 Bellator 183 ticket holders to arrive at the SAP Center will receive this free limited edition Fedor Emelianenko bobblehead. So there you have it.
And we have it right here.
Yeah. How about it?
Next question.
Sweater and all, baby.
Yeah, the sweater of absolute victory. Okay. Rafael Dos Anjos versus Tyron Woodley.
Yes.
Rafael Dos Anjos versus Robbie Lawler. Which of those or any would you pick next from Horse Racing Digest?
Woodley might be out for a bit, so I really like the idea of RDA versus Robbie Lawler. I also really like the idea of RDA versus Woodley. So basically what I'm saying is if Woodley is available, I like the fresh matchup. I think it's a fun styles matchup. I like it. If he's not available, then I want to see RDA versus Robbie Lawler. You feel me?
Look,
I think it's good to have a new face at 170.
Yeah, that's what I was going with.
He's looked really good. Doesn't have the issues with cutting weight. What a story for RDA, right? Last year.
Can be an instant contender in this division.
He is already one.
Yeah.
He needs that one big win, but just because there's kind of a lull there and Woodley has wins over Wonder Boy and Robbie Lawler, but I'm okay with either of those scenarios. The big question is when does Woodley come back? But how about this change of fortune for RDA? Last year has the Conor fight, busts his foot like a week before. Horrendous luck. Think about how much would be different if RDA actually fought Conor McGregor. We wouldn't have the Diaz rivalry. Who knows if we have the MSG fight? Who knows if we have the Mayweather fight? Like the entire course of MMA history will be changed if that fight actually happens. Imagine if RDA knocked out McGregor. Anyway, so that happens, changes teams, changes management. He loses the belt. He loses to Tony Ferguson. Just a bad year for him. 2016 was a miserable year for RDA. Comes back this year as a 170-pounder, reinvents himself, 2-0 now. Good story.
From Keegan Webster, would this be a good time for Chris Weidman to make the change to the light heavyweight division?
I've been saying this for a while. Remember I said that? Months ago.
Yeah. You've been beating that drum. Who would we want to see him matched up against?
No. I mean, it's just...
I have one person that people are interested in finding out where they are.
Okay.
Let's ask this next question.
What do you mean?
From Eric Fields. What's going on with Rampage Jackson?
Oh, yeah.
Haven't heard much from him.
Yeah. I think we'll see him fight again. He's been quiet. I think he has some contract issues. It was a...
How about that for a...
Is Rampage cutting to 205?
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point.
I mean, look. We've got Serkinov out there.
Oof.
We've got Latifi. Latifi's not too big. By the way, let's give props to Ilir Latifi, who was clearly set up for like a stepping stone fight against Tyson Pedro, and he wasn't the guy doing the stepping, if you get what I'm saying. And he came in there.
Told him get the stepping.
Yeah, he came in there and completely derailed that hype train. Well done.
Absolutely. Yeah, and a really like top to bottom performance.
Yeah.
Like just completely controlled it. Didn't really look like Pedro was able to get his game off while Latifi did the damn thing. So congrats to him.
I don't suspect Weidman fights at 205 next, but I certainly think that there's an open... I mean, here's the problem. Are the guys at the top just too big for him? The Gustafsons of the world, the John Jones of the world?
My quick gut reaction is yes.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I don't think that he's a 205er.
That's the problem.
What about Rampage? Do you think we'll see him anytime soon?
I think we'll see him soon. I do. Would love to talk to him.
I mean, if he's back with his girl, you guys should be okay.
Yeah, let's see.
Aside from McGregor versus DS3, what's the biggest fight the UFC can realistically put together this year?
Oh, that hasn't been made.
What do you mean that hasn't been made?
Well, because
you can make a rematch again.
Well, GSP Bisping, I think will do pretty well for them.
I think that can be a sufficient answer if you think that that's the second biggest fight outside of McGregor.
No, because I feel like that doesn't count because it's been made. So
it hasn't happened.
I want to give you one that.
Okay.
Yeah, because they booked it.
Damn, look at you. Let's go. Now you're struggling, though.
No, there's one that comes to mind. I just want to see if there's a bigger one. 170, 155. Okay, so the one that comes to mind, because I really think if promoted correctly could be a very, very, very big deal, it's Chris Cyborg versus Holly Holm.
Ooh.
I think that could be a very big deal if promoted
How does
correctly.
that rank to compare to GSP Bisping?
I think the return of GSP is pretty damn big.
Is the return of GSP on par with McGregor versus DS3?
Hell no. Are you nuts?
Okay.
I don't. By the way, I don't know if GSP's return gets 1 million.
Right.
I think that it's been botched. I think that it's been a while. I don't know if the fans are like foaming at the mouth to see, but it's a big deal, and it will do well, and it will certainly do better than most of the pay-per-views, if not all the pay-per-views this year.
And I think a cheating answer is McGregor versus X would probably be the second biggest. Yeah.
McGregor versus a broomstick does better than anything. Let's be real.
That's a cheating answer.
And the biggest fight they can make right now is McGregor versus DS3. Make no mistake about it. But that's the biggest fight. I'm talking money-wise that they can make right now. Like Stipe's return is big.
Yep.
I think Stipe versus Ngannou would be a fun fight, a great fight, a spectacle, but I just don't know. Like Stipe versus John Jones would have been big. Of course, I'm excluding John right now. And I suspect that we'll get the answer to that B sample sooner rather than later.
I like it.
And there's some big fights coming up. Holloway versus Edgar is a big fight. Joanna versus Rose is a big fight.
TJ.
Of course, that one's booked already. So there are fights on tap, but I think that of the fights that aren't booked, Cyborg versus Holly Holm could headline, and it would be a big deal. I still think Holly Holm, without Ronda around, is probably the face of women's MMA in the UFC. Is that fair? Like the most...
Is Cyborg not?
No, I think more people know Holly Holm. I definitely think more people know Holly Holm.
I guess. I mean, I guess the whole face thing is a subjective measure
I just
anyway.
think she's more popular. She's been around longer. The UFC. I mean, she's got she's got the Ronda.
Okay, well then here's the question: would a Holm versus X fight do bigger than a Cyborg versus X fight? That will be the indicator of it.
I think
because I would say a Cyborg versus X does better.
I don't know about that. I still think that. I mean, Holm. The last fight was a nice finish, a little bit slow. I think together, it's like the DC alone. Does he do big numbers? No, but with John Jones, he does big numbers. You know what I mean? So I think together.
Yeah, but that's because John Jones does big numbers.
Look at UFC 197. Wasn't the biggest event of all time?
Different.
Why? That should
different time and place.
Why? It was
John Jones.
Off a long
John Jones is the secret ingredient in that. DC versus John Jones.
Tango.
Certainly, there's a perfect storm there.
Takes two to tangle.
I wouldn't argue that DC's the A side of that.
Of course not. Of course not.
The same way I would think
197 to 322.
I think Cyborg is the main draw there. But I think together they'd be.
Yeah, she is the main draw because she hasn't lost in a decade, and certainly not on anyone's. In MMA, I know the Muay Thai fight.
Yeah.
So the question in that fight is, can Holly be the Cyborg Slayer like she was the Ronda Slayer, right? So there's a story there. It's absolutely, but like Holly's the face, Holly is the name, Holly's the one that Holly would be the highest level opponent that Cyborg has fought in how long? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's been a while.
And by the way, not taking anything away from Tanya Evinger, who I have a ton of respect for, but just given her background, former UFC champion and all that.
Tanya is not a 145er. She's best at 135. She was a champion and Invicta there. She's just super tough and stepped into that fight because Tanya Evinger would fight anybody. By
the way,
but you're right.
By the way, Tanya Evinger versus Raquel Pennington. That's a
Yeah, Tanya's definitely got to be in that mix at 135 now. Okay, that was it. We're done.
That's it.
Now we're done.
Level of interest in Canelo Triple G?
Whatever the highest possible level, whatever
what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
It breaks that.
What are you going to do as far as Saturday night is concerned?
Sit down, order it, and watch it.
So you're not going to watch UFC?
I'll watch UFC. I got 2 screens. Don't worry about that.
You got 2 screens? Tell me about your setup.
Dog.
What do you mean? You got 2 screens?
Dog.
I don't have 2 screens.
First of all, I got the projector.
You got the projector? Gee.
You don't know about the 110?
What?
110 across from the couch?
I don't know what that is.
Then 110 inches.
Oh, wow.
Diagonal.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a bad boy right there. throw up the, sad to say, I think the boxing match gets that one. Then you got the desktop. You could put the Rockhold Branch fight on there, or the laptop right next to me. But yeah, that one, the interest in Triple G Canelo is whatever is the highest possible, one notch higher than that.
Yeah,
I think that's.
I'm really looking forward to it.
But I'll say this: David Branch did a hell of a sell job today.
David, what about Mike Perry?
Okay, yes, but Mike Perry,
he ingested
that from Mike.
He's not sure, but he thinks he ingested metal.
Don't ingest metal, kids. That's
the best part is he's not sure.
Yeah, we don't know. We'll find out. Who knows?
That guy, holy smokes, cracks me up.
I'll tell you this: he's not going to miss the fight.
Yeah. I'm worried about Thiago Alves. I think he should make it on time. Maybe a little late.
Yeah.
By the way, Hector Lombard versus Anthony Smith.
I expect that from Mike Perry.
Yeah.
David Branch gave me the new side today. But he was right when he talked about, he gave us that story last time about how he got into MMA. There was some, he brought it that time too.
He did.
This is a different.
But by the way,
he sold us a fight.
I mean, he had some the chicken heads or whatever line. I mean, that was, he can't really, I don't know. I feel like he's more mad about the Rockhold interview where I said that, are you afraid that he will lull you into a boring fight? I think that's what pissed him off.
Maybe.
By the way, I forgot to ask him how he gets his hair cut while wearing a toque. Next time. I didn't know if that was I thought of it, I will be honest, but I didn't want to ask.
But, he sold me. Look, and you know what? When I watched back the Rockhold clip of him talking about Branch, I don't think he's taking him lightly. I think he really is aware of how well-rounded and how good David Branch actually is. He talked about, he's not a slouch in the stand-up. He's not a slouch on the ground. The one thing he was pointing to was, talking about he thinks that, Branch is calculating during the fight and not pulling the trigger. And I think Branch said, he put it as perfectly as you can. This is that fight where I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
It's been building to this point, and now, caution to the wind, it's time to put it on. So we'll see, how that turns out for Branch and Rockhold.
Let's see some promotion though. Let's see them put. I mean, they've got a story here with Rockhold coming back. They've got Branch. I mean, I know that the clock is ticking and we're 5 days away, but I mean, I feel like with those two interviews, we've done a better job of highlighting this main event and promoting it. Come on, let's step it up, right?
I'm into
And then you got
fight.
Perry Alves, Hector Lombard against Anthony Smith, Gregor Gillespie coming back, Kamaru Usman,
big prospect.
Yeah, against Sergio Moraes.
Huge prospect.
Kamaru Usman is undefeated as a welterweight in the UFC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looking to go 6-0. Come on now. He needs like a flashy finish though.
He needs a finish. He needs a step up.
Yeah.
But a huge prospect.
Anyway, I'm really looking forward to Triple G.
Solid.
Who's the favorite in that fight, by the way?
Let's look that up. I'm not actually sure.
And by the way, while you're looking that up, let me just give a shout out to Sarah Morris. If you did not see her post-fight scrum on Saturday, a very emotional one, talking about her walkout song and how it was her dad's favorite song, her dad who passed away 6 years ago from brain cancer. And then she said she was very emotional about that. Kudos to her for being as honest as she was. She said that she was emotional because she got her period that day. She wasn't expecting that. And that she's still a mail woman in Canada, and she delivers the mail and sorts the mail. And she was hoping for a bonus. Unfortunately, she didn't get that. But I was having a hard time not crying, watching her cry. Especially, she was very, very emotional. So congratulations to her and her coach, David Lee, who's doing a lot of great things for Toshido MMA. He said that he really wants to come on the show, and he thinks that I've been ducking him. And so I will make things right. And how about Cajun Johnson, our guy Cajun, coming back after 2 years off with a flash knockout, if you will, right above the ear against Adriano Martins. Some great performances on Saturday. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Big upset for Sarah. Triple G is a slight favorite over Canelo. -155, Canelo +125.
Oh, wow. You betting on it?
Nah, man. Betting on boxing is a
tricky thing.
Crapshoot with those judges.
Just a couple other things. Karolina Kowalkiewicz against Jody Escobel.
Yep.
In Dansk. That's kind of a surprise, right?
I think Jody's definitely of that caliber. I think it's a good comeback for Carolina.
Yeah. The Fertittas sold the rest of their shares, so they're officially out. Those guys on the same day that the DJ fight gets pulled, just showering in money now.
And their cousin just bought the Rockets.
Just showering in money. Shout out to my pal Leonard Ellerby, who 2 weeks before Maymax said that they had already surpassed the 60 million number for their gate, and it ends up being 55 million. How that happened? Someone needs to find out what happened to that extra 5 million. And then he said that they were well on their way of surpassing the record, which was 72 million. Shout out to him. And shout out to my good friend Cain Velasquez, who I saw, who was also happy to see me in Edmonton. I saw him there in the back. I think when he saw me, he was like, oh, crap. Now I have to talk to this guy. But he seemed to be in great spirits. Said that he was probably not going to come back this year, that his family, his wife is expecting their second child, a boy, so mazel tov to them, and that he's getting better, but couldn't quite put a time frame in place for his return. But it was nice to see him. I miss Cain Velasquez. Shout out to all those people who told me that I was wrong when I said that he wouldn't fight on October 7th. And now we're done.
You're just giving a lot of shout outs, huh?
Thank you very much, New York Rick. And oh, by the way, we're back on Twitter for the MMA Beat, and we're going to debut a new segment called the After Beat. No, After the Beat. Still getting used to it.
Nailed it.
Paige wants to call it Beat Tweets. I think that's the worst name in the history of names.
I'll say this.
Yes.
The After Beat or After the Beat, neither of those is very good.
I think After the Beat is fun. Anyway, I will remind you on Thursday about this, but we'll be answering questions, your questions on Twitter, an exclusive post show after the beat with the A-team. So look out for that on Thursday. But for now, we're done. Yes. Thank you for that, Rob. Best in the biz. MMAFighting.twitter.com. That's where you can watch the MMA Beat on Thursday. Same time and place, 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, MMAFighting.twitter.com. And then we'll have After the Beat at around 2 o'clock to 2:30 answering your questions with the crew. How fun is that? But for now, we shall say goodbye. We have taken up way too much of your time. This has been a lot of fun. Shout out also to the people in Edmonton who came up to me and said, look, I listened to your show. I was just listening to it. I still have 30 minutes left. And to the doubters and the haters and the critics out there, every single one of them says, more. We want more. Not less. Not it's too long. Give us more. That's what they say. And I appreciate it. Appreciate all of you for tuning in on another Monday. It's good to be back on Monday. It was weird to be on a Tuesday last week. Appreciate all of you who stopped by. Appreciate all the guests. Thank you very much to Demetrious Johnson who stopped by. Hopefully his situation gets sorted sooner rather than later, and hopefully he gets paid sooner rather than later as well. Thank you very much to Darren Till. Great stuff from him. Looking forward to that main event on October 21st against Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Again, if you have not seen Cerrone's outfit on Saturday, go check it out. It's on my Instagram. Incredible. Thank you very much to Raquel Pennington. Good luck to her as she attempts to get that title fight against Amanda Nunes. Thank you very much to Brian Stan. Oh, how we will miss Brian Stan. All the best to him in this new chapter in his life and career. Thank you very much to Andrea Lee. Sorry we couldn't get her on Skype, but good luck to her on September 22nd. She defends her LFA flyweight title. Thank you very much to Mike Perry. Fantastic stuff. Good luck to him on Saturday against Thiago Alves. Thank you very much to David Branch. Good luck to him on Saturday in his first UFC main event as well. And of course, thank you very much to Arjun Singh Buller. What a fantastic interview. Love that guy. Thank you very much, all of you as well. Back next week, same time and place. Till then, say peace. I'm out of here.